to all the developers and Azure fans. I am Anjali, Microsoft Azure Developer Lead from Steel City, Jamshedpur. Welcome you all to the brand new session on Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Concepts. I'd like to take a moment in pleasure to introduce our expert session with our expert speaker, Santosh Kumar Sir, who is a data engineer, programmer analyst at Cognizant. He is a winner of Azure Developer Stories and Conference 21 and Microsoft Azure certified trainer. Also, he is an Azure certified data scientist, data engineering, and Azure Data AI fundamentals, and also a machine learning developer. It's an honor to have him with us. Now, I would like to request Sir to enlighten us with Microsoft Azure machine learning concepts. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot for the great intro. So we'll get started. I think I don't have to introduce anything much. So if you can bring up the slides, we could get started.
Yes, sir.
So in the meantime, I think we have covered few of the topics that in the last maybe in the boot camp. If you have not attended, I highly recommend that you guys attend. So that is something that could be a little bit helpful. So today we will brush up on those area, and then we'll just again move on to NLP part, which we haven't really touched on the last boot camp, which I did plan. So we'll do that in this time. So what we'll do is we'll just go through all the few of the concepts that you might want to have it handy, and we'll also see a demo of the designer, and as well as if possible we'll also see how Q&A maker works. And I do have slides, but I just want to show some live, so we'll do that. And we also have a demo for image processing, so we'll see all these. Totally depends on what is the time that we have. So let's get started. I think the intro is enough, so we don't have to touch upon that. Just move through. So whatever I have said, we'll touch upon really from the basics. So if someone is really new, so the most audience who are joining today, they can have a little bit knowledge on machine learning, and if that is okay, or if they don't have any knowledge, we accept that as well. So we don't require any kind of specific knowledge to understand the concepts that I'm going to tell you. I would make sure that you guys understand in simple terms. So anyone who is really new to AI or machine learning, how things work, or even Azure, how things work, that could be really easy for you to understand. So I'll make sure I'll put out some examples which which you guys can understand, you can relate to. Okay, so we'll start off first, very basic stuff. What is artificial intelligence, or what is AI? Since we, know, this has been in the buzzword, a lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people are exploring that, and it has almost been saturated. When I started off in 2018 or 2019 ish, it was like a niche where everybody wants to start, and we didn't have like a full-fledged workshop, or we didn't have like a full-fledged I would say a tutorial which you guys can follow, and we didn't have any experts of that sort, right? It has just come out, and we didn't have libraries and frameworks to do, but we didn't have any implementations, which we are seeing maybe in a couple of years. We did see even the a model which can generate human faces, which we haven't even seen, like they don't even exist in this world, but their images are seen. So that is something that is the advancement that has happened, so which we haven't seen maybe in 3 years, right? In 3 years, I haven't seen a model which can so what happens in the machine learning field is it tries to replicate, or it tries to understand what we are doing and mimic it. So that is all machine learning does. So all that it does is whatever we do as a human being. If you want to make a decision, so let's say if I want to go, let's say you guys are planning for a getaway. We have three locations. Okay, just consider A, B, C. I don't want to get into the locations. So A has some good, sceneries, mountains, and views, and B has some, really cool, night outs and those places, and C has a beautiful view of a sea. Okay, so this is the three scenario that we will consider, and so let's say how do you pick from your own perspective. So these are the scenarios that I have set, A, B, and C. So A, B, and C we have, and what is that location you would pick, or what is the criteria that you would put to choose A or B or C. So just put it in the chat, whatever just comes to your mind. Just put it in the chat. So what is the criteria, or what are the things that you look for to, so let's say if I'm choosing A, what are the features, or why I am choosing A. So just trying to see if you guys can work around that part. Okay. Okay, cool. We don't want to waste much of the time. So ABC, anything you can choose. So let's say if I'm choosing B, okay. B in the sense, what are the things that we have? We might have, getaways, maybe, places where you can visit, restaurants that you can go to. So that is the place that I'm choosing. So what are the criterias that I'm using to kind of choose that? Hey, this is the one that I want to go, or this is the place that I want to be. So that is something is based on few of the criterias that we have. So let's say what is my personal interest, or what is my personal taste. So that is one kind of a feature that involves choosing a location. And if you're inside a budget, and that is also a feature. So if, let's say if someone wants to stay inside a budget, okay, so let's say 50K, and they don't want to go above 50K. So what happens is you have a set of things. So we do have this budget stuff, and we also have this personal interest, whatever they want to go, and based on other criteria. Let's say if you have budget, and if you watch maybe Money Heist or some thrillers, so that is a feature. So we'll have these kind of things. So if, let's say, I describe a person of these features, and if I ask you to choose an item or a thing uh, based on his or her interest, you will understand that this guy, or this person would be much more interested, or much interested to pick this thing up. So that is how, or that is all the machine learning does. So it can be in any form. It can be a text, it can be an image, it can be verbally spoken stuff, or it can be written stuff, anything of that sort, anything, whichever the replication is done. So as part of the process that we guys do, like, we as a human, we process stuff, and we have some kind of a knowledge which has come from the experiences that we have gone through. So let's say if someone has gone through, this location is really bad, and they know, if someone is discussing about that location, or if someone is planning to go to the location, you would say that, hey, this location is really bad, I would recommend going to some other place. So how do you have that knowledge? So the first thing, you have it by the experience, the past experience that you have. So that is the same with a machine learning model. So that is the extent that machine learning models have gone through in the past. In the past, this is the bare minimum that a machine learning model can do. So whatever we guys do, that kind of mimics that particular space, right? So whatever we tell or we speak, all these kind of stuff, it kind of does. But the thing that has evolved in the, maybe in 2 to 3 years, right? So that has been one of the big factors, or I would say one of the largest contributing thing when it comes to AI. So it doesn't have a use case. If we just generate, it has a use case. If you want to cheat, that is that use case. But apart from that, goodwill use cases or zero for a model which generates, images of people who are not alive in this world. So that is not a really good use case, I would say. But there are so that is the power that has come out with all these advancements in technology, as well as advancements in AI and building stuff. So half that works and half this works, we'll see at the end. You will get to understand. I'm talking about a model which can generate an image, so of a person who's not alive on this planet, right? So that we'll talk about, and we'll try to understand how the image processing works behind that when we cover the image processing part. So moving on, this is pretty much the basic stuff. Some of the classifications we have. So we do have the first part as machine learning, where it kind of deals with some data. So people confuse, or people try to replace, or they kind of use it in the place of AI. So that kind of that is really a bit annoying to see. Machine learning is something different, and artificial intelligence is something different. So they do it like an interchangeable word. They use it a lot. They say AI bar ML. So that doesn't really make sense if you just see through it. Artificial intelligence is nothing but an intelligence which is got by some form of data, right? Some form of data you have, or you have past experience. The intelligence is developed by some other means, which is you are feeding in data to something else, and you're generating that intelligence. So as a humans, we don't feed in, we don't do it intentionally, but we develop that skill from the uh, you know from your toddler age. You kind of see things, start talking based on how what you see around. What you see around, your parents are doing it, your relatives may be doing it, your friends may be doing it. So that is how you guys learn, right? We don't force anything to, or we don't really force stuff to happen. But for this part, we force something. We have a data, so we force a child to learn this particular phase, or we force a child to learn this stuff at the earlier age, like 5 or 4. So we force something and do, and we have an intelligence. So that is how AI comes into the picture. And machine learning is also something of that sort, where it is more focused on the model itself, on how the model is getting trained, or how the training happens. There are various sorts of ML models available, so you can't say AI models, you can say ML models instead. So that is the more appropriate wording for that. If it's say AI models, it doesn't make any real sense. But ML model is something, the word that you guys have to use if you are at least trying to start with. If let's say if someone is telling that AI and ML is interchangeable, and you should be able to talk to the person and convince that those two are different, right? So that is something that you guys can understand on how exactly that works, or how that exactly that happens inside a workflow, or inside a pipeline, whatever you train or you develop. Just make sure you have the difference right. And these are some of the classifications that we have as of now. Anomaly detection is, it is a broader term for where you can find unusual patterns or events in any place. It can be, let's say you have a web application, and everything goes well. Let's say you have a blog, and people are coming and reading your blog, it is fine. Let's say if a user who is a bit advanced in web development, and he kind of tries to delete the blog. So what he all does is, he sends a uh, you know slash delete on your URL. Can be of any sort. It is up to the API developer to, or the backend developer to develop the API of any sort. But mostly, your blog post slash delete would be, or delete slash your blog post would be, blog post name would be the most of the part where you can, where you will have delete if you have that option. If you don't, it is fine. So if someone gets you, or if someone sends you that particular request to your API, it has to detect that there is something happening, or there is this guy who's trying to do something fishy. there are requests coming from this particular IP address, which looks suspicious. So that is something that these models can detect, or that can do it in real time, or it can be a very static one. So let's say you give that model or that particular API model feed in 100 lines or 200 lines or million lines of log files, and it would tell you that this particular IP address or this particular log is suspicious, and guys have to look at it. So that is something that a model can do. It is both ways. It is not just one part of how it happens. So it can be of both sides. It can be static one, as I said, you feed in the file after training the model, or you kind of do it after. The real time one is really easy, or that is the most used one. We don't have any static. We do have static models to do various other stuff, but most probably we would want it real time, right? So if someone is deleting all the files inside the system and you take the logs and process it after a week, and there is no use of doing it. So that is something that you guys can see through. It is pretty easily understandable. And computer vision, we would also see how this image processing works, which is really a fascinating one, where I started initially. I didn't start with text, so most probably, or most people who start with machine learning would start with image, since that is the easiest one, or NLP is also the easiest one. But I haven't really worked on most of the part, but few of the things I can tell, whatever I have done, so I can talk about that. And conversational AI is something that has come into picture with the chatbots. If you have seen, we have Discord chatbots, which is not like really an AI, which is programmed, hard coded by the way. There could be AI which does some kind of interpretation, but most of the bots are hard coded. Whatever you see on the, maybe if you have bought something on Amazon or any other online portal, if you want to check if what is the status of that, or whatever it is returning, uh, type some sentences, or if you just go to Bing, and there's a chatbot which is available for you to kind of randomly chat. So that is the use of AI, which can replicate the human voices or human user experience. So if you are typing, or you are talking to a real person, so that is what it is kind of trying to replicate in the first place. So that you might have seen in most places. So coming to the part where we focus on the AI with Microsoft Azure. So we do have couple of services which Azure provides us with out of box capabilities. You don't have to train the model. You don't have to pre-process the data. So that is the hardest part of developing a solution. So all these is bundled up, and they give you an endpoint which you guys can use. So that is cognitive services, which I would talk about a bit later, maybe in the slides. And we do also have Azure Machine Learning, which is a designer drag and drop kind of a tool, where that is the part where we really, if you want to train a model from scratch, you just feed it the data set. The data set can be in form of CSV file, or if it can be in the form of uh, a file which is on your data lake, or if that could be a just a text file, any file that you want to process. Pre-processing is the first step that you guys want to do. So this gives that kind of a capability to start it from scratch, right? So just from the scratch, if you want to develop something, just go for Azure Machine Learning Designer. If you want to, let's say I have a code, or I have an application that I have to develop, or I have a use case that I have to build for, I'm just building a prototype, and if the API is available. So cognitive services doesn't have, at least it has most of the regular stuff, I would say. All the regular stuff a company needs, or a prototype needs for you to develop. So we have most of the parts. But again, if you want to have from the scratch, go for it. Most of the models are available in cognitive services. I'll show you what are the things that are available, and what are the things that you might have to build it from scratch. And we do also have Azure bot services, which is really a bit on the higher side. It is also drag and drop kind of a tool which you can also use. We do have a Q&A maker, which is also a drag and drop tool, where you can just have FAQs from the FAQ. So every if you have a event, if you're organizing for the college, or if you're organizing it for any event that we organize, right? So we do have some FAQs, so which people might ask frequently. So what are the submissions that we can make, what are the type of submissions that we can make. So these are the pretty much common questions. So what this bot or the Q&A maker can do is it can get the pre-existing FAQs, it can understand that. So let's say if someone is telling someone is asking questions in various forms, right? How are you is one form of asking how good you're doing, or something of that sort. Someone can say like, hey, what's up? So that is something that people frequently do. Someone is doing in the chat. So that is something that you guys can also try out in different forms of asking a person how they are doing. So you can understand the FAQs in that particular aspect. So let's say if there is a question of what are the types of submissions that I can make for this particular hackathon, and if a particular person is asking it, can I make this particular submission? So let's say if the question is something of this sort, right? Can I make a submission on blockchain, and it is a hackathon for cloud based, or if it is a hackathon for Android app based contest, and it should be able to tell that no, it is an Android app contest, you should submit a mobile app in Kotlin or Java, or any other thing that you want to use, Flutter maybe. Any of that sort would be fine, but you can't submit a project on blockchain, or can't have anything of blockchain of that sort. Let's say if that particular contest doesn't allow the implementation of blockchain. So that is how the Q&A maker should work. It should understand the question, and it should be able to answer the question in various forms. It is not just yes or no. It is not just a straightforward once. It could able to, everybody can hard code it, right? That is something that people have done for a long time. But they want to use the power of AI which is available, and they want to do something. So since this is some examples that you guys can understand better. So what are the risks, and since there is a debate for most of the part, right? So if you have seen, I think I'm not sure on the conference 2017, there was a conference on China where Elon Musk and Jack Ma, they talked about AI. So one talked about what are the advantages of using it, and one talked about how bad, or how it can be used in a more effective way, or how it can be used in fruitful way, instead of in a way that it kind of takes away jobs and stuff like that. So when they fought between the AI on how good it is, or how it should be implemented, and even Sundar Pichai has also commented it as you should do it in the right way. So the same goes for blockchain. He has said the same thing for both these cases. So what is doing it in a right way, right? Every technology that you come up with, nobody didn't talk about all these things. So we do have another slide talking about the responsibilities and the principles, and what are the things that you should be aware of when you're training a model from the scratch. So that is something that you can keep it in mind when you're doing it. So these are some of the things that you can just go through it. We'll just go through the important parts of it. So bias is something that it can be of any sort. So it is not just the human beings have the bias. We do have it intentionally. So we know that if, let's say, you have four friends, and one of them speaks your mother tongue, and the other two guys they speak a different language. They have a different language as their mother tongue. So mostly be attached to the friend who speaks your own mother tongue. It is not an intentional bias, but again, it is a common factor, right? So you have something in common that you guys can discuss a lot. So that is something. It is an unbiased, or it is a little bit biased, or it is biased, but it is it is not intentional, right? You are not showing that out. It can be intentional, it cannot be, but most probably it won't be intentional. The model has also has the same effect, right? Let's say you are giving out data of more men than women. It can be bit biased by if, let's say, for a loan approval, right? If the if the model is trained with unbalanced data set, if there are 1,000 women and there are 5,000 or 10,000 men in the data set, then it is not it can create a bias, but we are not pretty sure. But this can have an effect. This can have an effect on in the long run. Let's say if the person is really capable of repaying the loan, and the model keeps on rejecting their application, so that could be the loss for the particular bank or the particular institute, the financial institute which is providing that loan, right? People tend to pay, so there could be a different bias of any sort. If, let's say, there could be a age bias, there could be bias of any sort. If, let's say, that is something that people are trying to focus on now. uh, we didn't really focus on all these stuff before, where you are having it the initial phase of these machine learning models, but we tend to focus on now since it has become saturated field, and everybody knows about these models, and everybody talks about it. Everybody wants something in AI and ML. So let's say, if any company that you take, they want to have some kind of they want to say that they are they have a machine learning model, or they have some kind of a stuff in AI which does something. So they want to say that. So everyone wants to get in that field, and everyone has done it. So it is not like no more a mystery box. Everybody talks about it. Even that is why you are having these sessions, right? So Azure developer communities, they have started it just a year back. We didn't have any of that sort. When I was in college, or at least when I was trying to learn this stuff, there were less materials and less stuff, and there were no people to address questions. So if you just have a question, you don't have any places to go. Even if you type in Stack Overflow, you might get the questions answered, and the maybe the program errors that you can rectify, you can do that. Let's say if you don't know how to load a model from a pickle file, there could be solution for that. But have you trained the model, or let's say you want to clean the data, do a pre-processing, and which features to choose, there's no one to guide in that place. So that is something that we have developed, and just want to put it out there that it is a saturated field already, or at least it is not that that of a hype way back in 2018. So that is the thing that I want to show it in this one. So this is the important part of since you guys are really new, you can learn all these other stuff that I'm going to be talking about in all the blogs, the YouTube videos, channels and stuff. But this is really important. So why this is really important? These are some of the principles that guides every program or every application that it goes through. Since machine learning models and all these models which handles data, so that is why we tend to have all these principles that we want to make. Since just because that it handles real people data, so they have let's say you are just sending in data. If you want to search for a restaurant, you say the budget that you want to go, and these are my favorite places, and these are my personal interests. So you give up those data to someone, right? It can be Azure, it can be any of the cloud providers, it can be to any of the organizations, right? So when you give out those data and you want to do those particular analysis, or if you are doing it in that scale, it doesn't harm really when you do these kind of stuff. If you want to suggest a video, that is fine. If you don't suggest it in the right way, I know nobody cares. But there are problems when it comes to medical records, right? If you handle medical data, there are guidelines for storing the data. It has to be inside the same country. If you can't just have a company which is running on India, you can't just store have a data center in US. storing medical records in their database. Or the same for European countries, and it is the same for US as well. So you can't store their country or their people data inside my data center, which is in India. So that is something that you should be really careful on doing. It is managed by Azure. It is not managed by another entity. It is everything is managed by Azure, but they want to have it in their own data centers. Even if something happens, a breach happens, they want to have their data safe. So that is something that we have been, or as a developer community, people have started focusing on all these things. Apart from this, accountability has come into real picture now. So you might have seen Tesla cars on the roads, not in the Indian roads, but if you're in US, you would see people driving it. People don't drive it; they just go in the back seat and they watch a movie. So that is something that people have done. And let's say if an incident happens, right? So if the driver has slept, he was watching a movie, and he fell asleep or something happens, and that is so you can't blame on the machine learning model. You don't we don't have a real guidelines that you can blame a machine learning model if something happens. So let's say the car hits a pedestrian in the sidewalk, right? So we can't just have them accountable. So we can't just have a file accountable for making the mistake, right? So a machine learning model is just one file or just one piece of raw data, right? So it is just one piece of let's say in bytes. So that is something you can't make that accountable, right? So you, let's say if it can be in any sort of problem or any phase the problem could have occurred. So we can't just blame the entire team for doing it or the entire model for doing it, but the blame has to go to someone, right? At the end of the day, Tesla car is hitting some 100 people on the road. It kind of ramps the entire let's say if there's a crowd, they're protesting for something, and the car goes right into the crowd. So who's accountable for that sort? Let's say if these driverless taxis come into play, and if there are 10 taxis, they don't have any security, or if the security has been breached, and they ramp the entire crowd. So who's accountable for if something of that sort happens? So it is not just, I'm just saying for this, but it has happened where it is not just killing people. So I haven't seen it has killed people, but it has ramped down into trees and stuff. So we did have some accidents by that, a car hitting another car. So those things happen because of maybe there are hundreds of reasons why that could have happened. It is not perfect. Even humans are not perfect, right? So when even we drive, we don't check both sides of the road when we cross. Even that time, those things happen. So that is a human made error. That is the error of that particular person who is crossing the road or who's driving the vehicle. He should have had some experience in doing it, or there should be someone of maybe he should have trained on it. Let's say if you're driving a car, you should have prior experience or prior training done to make sure that you don't hit anyone, or the car doesn't stop in a signal, which if you go in Bangalore and if you stop the car, and what happens. So if that sort happens, so you're accountable in any sort, right? Everybody starts blaming you. They shout at you, they yell at you. So they do all those sort of stuff. If the machine learning model, or if the AI does that, who's accountable? And there are also these five other things which we have spoken. The fairness is something which is a bit related to the bias and stuff, and reliability and safety is something that is related to what I've just spoken. Privacy and security is another big factor, since I have said of you giving out data to the machine learning model, which is maybe running on a different server. So they have introduced the concept, I'm not sure on the exact name of it, where a machine learning model lies on your phone, lies on your mobile, which does the prediction, or which does the recommendation, or any of that sort. And only the collective data, let's say the collective data of all the people in that particular area, goes into the Azure server. So it is not just directly goes into the server, but there are models which you can deploy locally in just inside your mobile, so it doesn't go out. So when you develop an application, we don't give the machine learning model lies inside your own mobile. So TensorFlow Lite is there. You can always convert that. It comes around in MBs, 20 or below that. Even models I have seen below 1 MB. So you can definitely use that when you're building models, which let's say if that is not a real use case, and if the model is not getting published, or it is not just that critical to your infrastructure, or critical to any other workloads that you are running, that could be inside your mobile. So it doesn't have to lie on a different server on Azure. It can be on any server in the world, any corner of the world. So that is something that people have been focusing on. And I just came to know about this when we went to this Microsoft office in Bangalore. So there were people talking about this particular area. So how do you protect the data of the user when it is going out of your scope? So once the data goes out of your mobile, so it kind of goes into bytes, and the in a data stream, it is just out of your scope. Nobody can tell that this is the data. It is encrypted, though. We do have HTTPS now, so we don't send any actual text of code where it can be easily decrypted. You just do a base 64 encode decode, and you can see the raw data going through uh, you know the router. So you don't have to do anything. Just install Wireshark, and you can see what are the data that you are sending in the URL. So that is why we do post request for logins. We don't do it in the get request. So that is the basic difference why we do that. So coming into the Azure and machine learning part again. So transparency is something that So I'm a bit of focusing on this particular area, since for the new guys who are here and who wants to develop machine learning models in the future, or who wants to understand how the existing model works, these are some of the factors you guys have to understand to build something for the future, right? We didn't focus on all these things. We didn't even had a term called fairness in machine learning back then. We didn't have a term called, we did have inclusiveness, that is for sure, but we didn't have it in the machine learning part of, or we didn't involve that particular phase um, in the flow of machine learning, right? So we didn't see that coming. So even privacy and security, more people are concerned about privacy enough, and how much data that they are giving out in terms of usage of the app, or just to get a free service, right? So all this free service that you use or consuming your data to make millions. So all the companies that you can name of who gets data, who gets some data out of you. So all the searches that you do, once you click on the particular, let's say you search for best machine learning course or Azure developer communities, the first link that you get, any search engine that you go, once you click on that particular link, you could see on the, let's say if your mobile data is pretty slow, you could actually see that it doesn't go, or it doesn't redirect you to that particular link. So it gives you, it kind of goes to that particular, let's say Bing or Google or DuckDuckGo. I haven't seen on DuckDuckGo, I guess. I'm not pretty sure, but for both of these, if you're using Google search engine and Bing, so it kind of goes to their server, and that particular has some kind of a redirect, equals, and there's a params for redirecting you to that particular URL, and that is the one that is redirecting you to that URL. So that is how, even if you go to blogs and stuff, where you can see how many people have visited from this particular site, how many have seen from mobile, how many of them have seen it from various devices. So all these data are given out. We know that, or people may not know it. So this is the data that we are giving out, and this is what the data that they are using it to make millions. right? So this is really important to understand, and more people are focused on these areas now. And so that is something that you guys as a developers, at least coming into machine learning field or any development that you make sure that these are the factors that we already have or we already have in place of doing. So make sure you have some kind of responsibility, or I wouldn't say it is a professional etiquette that you guys have to follow, but you can have some kind of an ethical value if you want to do that particular stuff. You're just trying to, if you can say that to the user that we are not redirecting you just by clicking that link, we are getting that particular data and we are trying to store it somewhere and we are redirecting you later, right? It is not just a direct browser redirect. So if you just click on browser direct, it goes to 403 if I'm not wrong, or 402. Those I think it is 302. Okay, 302 or 303, I'm not sure on that. So the redirect goes in that particular space, right? So that is the easiest form, and everybody does that, right? It is not just only these companies do it, so everybody does that. Just want to make sure that which particular person or from where the traffic is coming. So Wikipedia doesn't track all these. They don't have any stats of how many people are using it or how many people are viewing it. Since they don't track it, they don't have those kind of metrics, right? So that is something that that is an open source. We don't They don't make money out of all the people who are visiting, or they don't show any ads. They don't do any of that sort, right? So you can contribute to those areas. That is something that is really focused on, but that is something that you guys want to you know keep in mind while doing it. So it is not just as a developer you have to focus on coding part, building model, getting the paycheck. These are some of the things that you guys have to really understand and how the world functions. So sorry for taking that particular piece. So it took a lot of time. We do have a ton of thing to cover in 18 minutes. So cool. So this is something that you guys can see through. Uh, Base is your Azure subscription. So it is the base for the entire subscription part and what are the things that you do. And the second part is the workspace that you create. So this is purely for demo purpose. I think I won't be able to show the demo, but this is the thing that you guys can try out if you have a subscription. But Azure developer communities have these passes that you guys can use. So every Friday we have a quiz, so make sure you participate in it. You will get, I think, $50 or $100 credit, or 200. I'm not pretty sure on the dollars, but any of that sort for a month, you guys can try out all the services, free services on Azure. So that is something that you guys can look for. And this is how the designer looks like. So you guys can see, data set, notebooks, all the designer, experiments that you guys can run. And you can also create notebooks which is similar to your Jupyter notebooks, or if you have used Kaggle, that is of that sort. So these are something that you guys can try out. That is really important. Having a hands-on experience. So this is another part, people have been really focusing on. There is a library, or I would call a package called PyCaret, which kind of does automated machine learning. It is not for this particular thing is based on Azure, but there is a real based I would say local based machine learning, automated machine learning model. So what it does is just give it a data set in a CSV, tell that this is the column that I want to predict, and you don't have to do anything. You just need to give it, is it a classification or is a regression, those particular stuff, and it does the entire stuff. You don't have to do anything else apart from doing it. You don't have to touch any part of the process where we have to pre-process the data. And we do have couple of methods which you can use to cleanse the data. So aggregate the data and find the correlations, and feature engineering you have to do to pick up the features that is important. So all these part is done by that particular library that is free. It is open source. You can definitely try that out. I do have a notebook on Kaggle, have to do that. So you guys can look up to it if you want to. So that is something that you guys can really try. Even Azure has their own automated machine learning, so it is not that perfect. You won't get a perfect model in the first go. Even if it so what happens is it would train all the kinds of classifiers that we have. We do have, I think, a total of 30 in PyCaret. I'm not sure how much model they are using in Microsoft, but let's say they have 10, right? So let's say I have 10. They train all the 10 models, all the 10. And once that is done, you can choose which model you want to proceed further. So there is something called as hyperparameter tuning. I don't want to get into the too much of technical stuff, but this is the flow of how you get a good model which you can use. So once you have a model, let's say the model is giving 80% accuracy, and that is the max it can do without any of the tweaking, right? So there is a threshold, or there is the limit that it can go to the max. That is the max that it can go in an automated way. So what you do is you take that particular model out, and you just do some hyperparameter tuning. So in the layman's term, it is nothing but doing random numbers to get the password. So it is of that sort. It is not like random, I would say. Let's say if you want to find a number between 1 and 1000, so how many possibilities it has, right? So how many numbers that you want to try to get the model right. So that is mostly of in a layman's term what is called hyperparameter tuning. You just put in random numbers, again random numbers within that particular range. You give out random numbers and see what is the accuracy that you get. So once you get that accuracy, you can push it further. So that is how you do the final step before you deploy it in the real space. So that is how your complete machine learning flow works. So another thing that I have seen in the trend is once you deploy the machine learning model, right? So you can't just use it. This model can't be used maybe after 6 months, after a month, right? It keeps on. Let's say you are having a model which gives you stock prices, right? You can't just have the same model from 1990s to give you the right prediction of stocks today. So that is something that you have to retrain the model. So we do have couple of pipelines where Azure gives you, where you can do a retrain every month or every week, whatever duration that you want to do. So let's say you have a data set, and you update the data set. So let's say we have thousand rows on the month of April, and another 1,000 adds up in the month of May, and then another 2,000 comes on June. So you can set a threshold that if there is a data increment of 1,000 or 1K, then retrain the model again. Or you can have it in this sort. You can have a time trigger where it kind of retrains the model after this particular time expires. So every month on 30th, retrain the model and give me a different model to predict from the start of next month, right? So that is something that people have started implementing. So that is also something that people are doing right now, which we haven't seen earlier. So earlier, what is the use case? Fixed use case. Retraining was there, but retraining was not more of where they give it as a service. So every 6 months, Azure gives out a lot of different services that come out. So you should really have it handy, or you should be updated in that particular sort, to make sure that you are not lost in the middle of the thing, right? So you just have to keep updating the knowledge that you have, so that it doesn't you don't get expire with the same stuff that you talk about. So this is something really interesting. So I think we do have time for this. So I'll show you something really interesting. So how do you think the images are made? So from this diagram, I would suggest it is easy to say. So how do you think an image is made, or how do you think the image is represented in the file? In the form of a file, we do have a image as a form of a file, right? So we do have a file, we can look up to it, you can see the details of the file. So how do you think, just put it in the chat, random thought, whatever you think, just put it in the chat. What is it? what is that you think of when you see an image, or how do you think an image is made? Okay, pixels, bytes. Okay, I think I thought he would say it is a matrix here, SVG. Okay, okay. I think which pixel will light up then. So that is one of the answers that I did expect. So vectors, you don't have to go to that extent. You don't have to go to that far to understand this. I'll tell you in a very easy term that you guys can understand. Um, just a sec. Okay. So sorry for that. So pixels, group of pixels, image is composed of pixels. Fine. So what really happens when you see an image, right? So hope you guys are seeing this on a laptop or a mobile phone. So whatever you see, just try to get really close to the screen. So hope it is bad for your eyes, but again, just try to go really, really close to your. If you have a laptop screen, you can definitely see. If you go really, really close to the panel that you have, it is obviously an IPS panel. You would be able to see the pixels. If it is not 4K, you would definitely be able to see the pixels. If it is a 720p panel that you have, a screen, you can definitely see the pixels for sure. But most it is 1080p. If you go really close, you could see the actual pixel itself inside, as in the form of box. So the entire scope of your screen is 1920 by 1080, which is the entire pixels that we have. So it is in a form of array where, as someone said, it is lit or not. So that is the only part. So as you can see in the slides, it is pretty much the same. So whether it is lit or not. So the same way goes for the different colors that you see. So black and sorry for that. So black and white images that you see, the grayscaled images, it's pretty much accurate. Someone said, whether it is lit or not. So it is not just whether it is lit or not. So how much it is lit, matters a lot. So what is the percentage, or what is the value of pixels that is lit? So that is really important, if you want to go for to understand that particular phase. So how much pixels are lit to understand that. So let's say if the image only consists of these pixels, or there is something in addition to this image. So it does have just the image, you don't have any other details of the image. Okay, cool. I think the lag is taking a lot of time. Fine. So you do also have the details of the image, such as the lens that you have taken the image, the mobile phone that you have used it, and the location tag if you have turned on your location in your mobile. So all these metadata is what, again, when it comes to privacy, you're just not sending, uh, you know, the image or the particular pixel value in terms of bytes, right? You also send these metadata to the wherever you upload an image. All these metadata go with the image. So you should really understand that it is not just the image is not just an image. It has a name. It has to be stored somewhere with the image. It has all these metadata that you can see. Just go open your phone and just click on more details, and click on the picture details or whatever options that you have in the various phones. I think stock Android, it is details. I'm not sure on other UIs. but stock and trade is just details, I guess. So once you click on that, you see various things. I I remember only these two: the phone model name, and you would have the lens, focal length, and all these metrics from the camera itself, the lens that they have used, all these focal length stuff, the exposure, and all these. So all these metadata go inside with an image, right? So you're not just parsing an image. So this is something that people have started focusing on, not just these pixel values, but also these metadata that they are using it to, enhance their own machine learning model. So this how people are exposed, or this how, you are not aware of all these things, or no one is caring about people's data. They just want to have it. We can already scrape the data. So as you can see, 5 million users, LinkedIn users data has been, in black market, they say. But I wouldn't say it is being hacked or breached, as LinkedIn has, or Microsoft has, said in their case against this. It is not just they have breached into their database to get all these details. You can just scrape it across, right? You can just have a premium subscription on LinkedIn. You have unlimited views of the profile. You can have a Python script, or you can have any of the Selenium stuff. You can just browse through the entire profile and just get all the data. So that is something that is, I wouldn't say that is a loophole for doing it. They give out the premium services as a form of, running the platform itself, right? So you can't just have something for running just for free. So nobody does something for free. If it is for free, it is of just two reasons. One, they might be an NGO. They don't get anything out of it. They do something for the community, as what we do in Azure developer community. We don't get paid for any of this stuff. I don't get paid for any of these things. So it is just sharing knowledge. That is one part of how the free term or the freeware comes in, right? So freeware is different from open source. That is something different. So I'll talk about that later. It would take another 10 to 15 minutes to explain that. But again, you should understand that whatever, it is classified into just two of these. One is with pure intention of, contributing to the community or making people train on that. Second one is, an indirect way of revenue. So most of the companies that you see across, even the thing that you're seeing on YouTube is a indirect revenue. So what you're giving out is data, and what you're getting is a free service of watching this video. And another thing that you guys can do, so I don't want to talk about that, so I'll just move on to the applications of it, and we'll just try to stop it there. Okay, so this is, I'll show you the evolution of how computer vision, or how the image is being processed or recognized. So what you see is a taxi. So so you just give the machine learning model a image of this sort, and it kind of just gives you it as a taxi. So we don't have any fancy stuff. This is what it has to do. So image processing or image classification, if you focus on, it has to just take the all the pixels and match it with the memory that it has, all the knowledge base that it has gathered, and match with any of that, and it could give you that particular result. So we'll do try to, kind of do something really a bit complex. So we don't want to have just particular one image. So in this image we have a couple of things, right? We have a tire for it, we do have three windows, two doors, we have handles for it, we do see a headlamp. On all these we see, as a human being, I can see all these things. We do have a board on top of it, and we do have some other board behind it. We do have dustbins over here, and there's a man over here. So we see all this as a person, but a machine learning model, of that particular caliber, whatever. So these algorithms have been here in 1990s. So we didn't know nothing as these CNNs and all these. If you just go to the first paper published, it would be in 1980s or 1970s. So we didn't have the compute to do all these stuff. So the compute has increased, as you know. We did go from DVDs which had just 4.7 GB. It is only read only. So once you write, sorry, it is only write only. So if you write something to it, or it is once write. So once if you write it, you can't erase anything. You can just update it. You can't have any other stuff going in. So once you write, once you burn that, that is gone. So you have to have a rewritable disk in order to make that destroy the data, and then you have to rewrite it with the thing. So now we have solid state storages. What do you call it, as SSDs? All your pin drives, all your SSD stuff works on that particular part of. They don't have a disk. They don't spin. They don't do any of that fancy stuff. They have very compact in size. So that is the evolution there. But these evolutions, they have viewed it in the futuristic way that these can be implemented by someone. They have these papers published. So just search for convolution neural network, or the first journal of convolution neural network. It would be definitely published way back. Science Direct or any of the Elsevier is something that you guys can use. So that is something that you guys can try out and see when this has been published and when we have started using it. So roughly speaking, machine learning and AI has been used when 2015 or 2014 they have just started it. They didn't really full fledged. Even in 2013 or 14, I think it was something, but 2015 or 2016 it kind of started picking up, as blockchain and the web3 is picking up now, right? So this just 1 year, they talk about that particular thing as form of having giving data back to the user. So it is, I would say, it is not just giving. No, it is a bad form of implementation. Blockchain is not going to give you the freedom of as they call censorship and all these fancy words that they use. So torrent is something, is a real peer-to-peer connection where you send data from your own system to some other guy's system. So that is the data lies within you. So your data is in your machine, their data is in their machine. You just send it across. So that is a pure peer-to-peer. But all these web application, as they say, it has to be hosted in some servers. So you can't just have a different authority. You are just giving out all your data to some unknown people instead of a particular organization. So that is all your, they say blockchain does. So all it does is it kind of distributes all the data to 100 different unknown people instead of just giving it to one person or one particular entity who can be liable for that. So if something happens, we can just you can just have a claim, or you can have file a case or a complaint. You can do, or you can sue them. You can do all those stuff. But in terms of blockchain, you can't just sue anyone. You don't know where the server is, where, who is holding it. You can't do any of that sort. So coming back to this again, so we'll just try to complete it. This, it is 8.5. We'll just try to complete with this one. So what you see in the second image is a little bit complex than this one, the taxi one. You just give out a box of, let's say, some magnitude. Let's say if this particular image of this sort is here, then the machine learning model, it is also playing a guessing game. It is not just giving you the right pixel values that it can give. It is just doing a guessing game. The car stops, or the car is still here, but it kind of, it has dragged it across till here. So it is coordinate system XYZ. You can have PQRS. So if you're coming from geometry side, you might remember that. So all these coordinates form a triangle or a rectangle or a square. So any form, it would be obviously a rectangle. So this is a guessing game by the model, but what it has developed. So this is the first thing that we had. The second iteration is this one. To some sort, the machine learning model can recognize different objects, but even it has not recognized the tree, uh, and the lamp. All these things you can train accordingly. But this is really interesting. The second part is really super interesting, since it has evolved in the phase that it can give you the exact pixel until which the car is. Even for a human, if you want to really zoom in, you can see the pixels. If you're using Photoshop and any other stuff, just uh, I think it is alt and scroll up, you can really see each and every pixel. So that would be really fascinating. If you want to just take your image, just zoom it all the way across, you can see each and every pixel. What is the pixel that you have in your shirt? You can see all the crazy stuff. So you can also do that in with OpenCV. You can just print pixels 10 cross 10. Just try to print the 10 cross 10 inside your face and see what are the pixels that you have. So that is like a homework that you guys can do on your Sunday or Saturday night, whatever wish. So this has a bit advanced, so it kind of gives you the exact place of where this object lies. So you can see these two cyclists. It gives you the exact pixels of this particular whatever the people that they are traveling. So this is one kind of an advancement, and this is something that it has to do with two things. So one is image recognition, and it has to do something with the NLP. So first thing it has to do is it has to capture an image. So the same image, we do have the same image. So this is the box. It is a taxi. So another thing is person and a dog. So so what are the entities that you see? We see three cars, we see a trash can, we see a dog, black dog, and we see also a old man, we see a traffic light. We do have few buildings. It has four windows, which is made up of glass, and we also see a trash can over here. So we'd also, I think it is an Empire State, I'm not sure. Fine. So all these entities we see, it has to first see what are the entities that it has, and it has to give it to a NLP model or NLP process, which kind of forms this particular sentence. A person with a dog on a street. So I could also say that there are three cars behind him. That is also a possibility, which after this particular sentence it can give. But the main focus is here of the main focus of that particular model. If someone is if someone is they don't have, they are blind, they want to view the world, if they want to have a picture. So if someone is walking in front of you with a dog, this title is really apt, really suitable for someone when, let's say, if the person is coming in front of you, it alerts you that a person is walking with a dog in the pathway. So that is something alert message that it can give you. So that is something that is useful for us. If someone with as normal people, they don't have any disability, if they want to see the image, I can see the person with the dog, but it can give more details. It can also tell about the weather. It is too foggy, it is early in the morning. So all these things you guys can train. It is not just this particular sentence is it totally depends on the use case. So I just want to tell that this is the advancements that we have made. So, as you might have definitely seen this model. It kind of recognizes whether people are wearing a mask or not. That is one of the models that I've seen a lot of demos on LinkedIn feed. They keep on, just cloning the repo and they are running it. At least they are doing it that sort. But anyway, face detection and if you're wearing a mask or not, it has been viral for since this pandemic hit. They wanted directive all the employees were wearing masks at all the time. So this is another advancement that machine learning has pushed across. So from what we have over here, it just knows this pixel. If this pixel is this shape, so if there are pixels of this shape on this color, it is a taxi. So if you just give it this image to this classifier, obviously it should tell taxi. Or since the pixel value of this guy is greater than these two, it might give taxi, or else it can give this person, or even it can give building. I'm not sure, but the it totally depends on the pixel value. So that is why they have cropped it, right? So as you can see, they have cropped it to the extent that the pixels of the taxi is far greater than any other object in this image. So can you understand how this relates to the detection that it has made? So if we just give this model, the image classifier, this model, whatever the model is, just give it this image, and I would just whichever the pixel is more, it can also tell the road, right? You have, we just collect all the pixels in the road, and compare it to all the other pixel, other entities pixel, I think the road would be much higher. So this is something that the model gives out. We never know which part of this, this this entity is going to come up or not. It can be a street, it can be a building, it can be a weather. It is too foggy, it can say. It can also say that a man is just crossed the street, which he did, right? From the crosswalk you can see he has walked across this particular space. So this is something that the model can tell. You can fine tune it. It is just a matter of how what is your use case. This is something it has been here for a while. Text recognition, and this text is pretty easy. You can see, you know, it is the standard printed text. Printed text, I mean by you have this font available. How it detects it is pretty easy, and it is pretty tricky to some extent. So if DNO is pretty much similar, right? Even for us, the INL is pretty similar. So INL, I don't think machine learning model would, if there are particular fonts, I think Arial you have that L on the complete L, but for other fonts, if you see, I'm not sure on the name of it. I think even in Korea's Neo you have the same L. For some fonts, if you see the capital I and the small l would be pretty much similar, but the capital L would be a bit higher, very bit higher. So you, even if you see something, if you see a word of that sort, right, you would be really confused on which, if it is I. If you don't know the word, if you don't know the word, if you just have three words from the start of characters from the start of the word, you may not know if it is I N or L, right? If it is a word, we could definitely find out that it is an I. For this particular word, I should be at first or L should be at first, but for other stuff it is really hard to find. For it is the same for machine learning models. So it kind of takes this pixel, so it kind of analyzes, it kind of throws the entire knowledge base that it has gathered. So they have trained with 1,000 T's, 1,000 H's, 10,000 E's. So whichever they have trained more, it can give accurate result for that particular character. Since it has seen all these different patterns and variations, so it can find out if it is similar to it. So it is pretty similar to how you approach exams, right? So if you get the same question, you get the complete marks, or if it is similar question, you can also get some average mark. So it is of same sort for the machine learning model. So just want to make sure that you can relate to. So this is something that you guys can build upon. I just throw some insights on what are the things that you can do with Azure, and what are the advancements that we have seen so far with all these machine learning and models that we have come across. So I just want to show you a demo, but the time is up already, so we'll try to wind it up. We'll catch up with the demo. We did have a demo last in the boot camp. You can check out the video if you really want to see. Uh, I haven't shown these models in a demo, but I have shown cognitive services using API key, and I have also shown the designer, the machine learning designer that we did discuss about today. So those things you can definitely watch out for that. So with that, I think we'll try to wind it up. So that's it for today, folks. So if you have any questions, we could really take it up, or else I think it's time to wind it up.
Okay, that's all for the session. We all know that the topic is vast, still, Sir gave us the valuable time. To be honest, I feel like my words are betraying because no words can define the amount of productivity this session gave. Within an hour, thank you so much, sir, for enlightening the session, uh, which gave us enormous technical insights about Azure machine learning, as well the challenges and principles of AI. I, Anjali, Azure Developer Lead Jamshedpur, signing off. Thank you.
Okay, so guys, one last announcement from my side. So here is the Discord server link of Azure Developer Community. So do join our Discord channel. So we have a tomorrow we have a quiz for you guys exclusive for your community, and what we are doing is the basics. It will be on basics of Azure. So to participate in the event, top three winners will be getting the merchandise, Microsoft merchandise, and you will also be getting like top 10 winners will be getting Azure passes worth one pass worth at least $100 worth Azure passes you will be getting. So to participate in the Discord server, we every Friday we do a quiz there, and this time this quiz is exclusive for you, those who have joined in the session. So see you guys, see you in the Discord server, and see you. Thank you, Santosa, for coming in. Thank you, Anjali, for hosting the session, and I really hope you guys all have enjoyed the session. And so let's meet then. Let's meet tomorrow at the quiz in our Discord server link. The quiz will be hosted in hashtag quiz channel. And the last thing is the timing will be 7 p.m. tomorrow. 7 p.m. tomorrow. Okay. So that's it. Thank you, everyone. Let me highlight once again. This is the link where you have to join our Discord server link. So thank you, everyone. See you. Bye bye.